Because of the way the universe is created, we each of us live in two worlds at the same time. We have to live in the outer life of our own bodies and the inner life of our own souls.
Hello and welcome to Living the Inner Life. I'm your host, Chris Sheridan, and I want you to join with me on a journey into our inner lives, our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, beliefs, everything that helps shape the way we respond to and interact with the outside world. And if we can use these tools of consciousness, we can live a better inner, outer, and total life. Well, one thing about life is we need to take care of each other. And some people, more than others, really gravitate towards being a caregiver. They seem to be naturally good at it, and it's so grateful and amazing that we have such people. Although if you know anyone who is a natural caregiver, they generally don't take very good care of themselves. All right, so that's the question I want to ask. Who cares for the caregiver? Well, if you've ever flown a commercial flight, you will certainly have heard the flight attendant go through the whole emergency procedures and how to buckle your seatbelt and all that stuff before the flight. Well, they also talk about air masks, and in that unlikely event that you lose cabin pressure, the air masks will come down in front of you and you put it over your mouth and nose and the elastic strap around the back of your head. But they always say the same thing. If you are traveling with a small child, put your air mask on first before you help the small child. Now, this may seem counterintuitive, and certainly in an emergency situation, a lot of people, maybe most people, would, help the kid first, because that would make sense. That's logical, it's compassionate, there's just everything that seems right about it. But there's a very smart reason why they say to put yours on first before you help the small child or somebody that needs extra assistance. And that is, you will be in much better shape to help them if you have your air mask on. If you are fumbling with the air mask trying to get it on a kid's head and you don't have yours on, and maybe it takes a little bit longer or there's turbulence, then you may pass out before you're really able to help this other person. Okay, well, this is more than a metaphor. This is a really strong message that I have to remind myself of. I remind other people, and it's worth bringing up today on this podcast about caring for the caregiver. All right, and even though this makes sense once you logically think about it, okay, to help yourself first before helping another person, putting you in a much better, stronger, more secure position so that you can be of better help. All right? So what is it and why is it that caregiving people generally don't take the time or the effort, or maybe worse, feel it's necessary or worthy that they take care of themselves, or even more so, have somebody else provide assistance and help take care of them? I think what happens a lot of the time, and we see this because, I don't know if it's a trend generationally or just the sign of the times, kids are moving back in with their parents. An older parent often now will come live with the grown adult children. It's better and cheaper and more loving than having them shipped off to a nursing home or something like that. I mean, to the degree that you can take in someone and take care of them. I've seen it a lot. It seems like it happens more and more as I get older. I see more of that and experience it firsthand. All right, so this trend is coming. But what seems like goes on with a caregiver is they get in caregiver mode so strong that there's blinders or a blind spot, and they have to, no, I'm being selfless. I'm putting myself out there. I'm helping this person. They need me. Okay, and that is true. People who need taken care of need a caregiver to give the care that they need. Same is true with the caregiver. Okay, if you identify yourself as a caregiver or somebody who just wants to help everybody, maybe you rescued a small animal when you were a child, and this evolves into animal rescue and work for preservation or animal shelters, and then taking care of kids perhaps, or doing daycare, elder care. It can just be a thing. And a lot of times we slip into this. You know, a lot of caregivers I know didn't really set out to do that, but an emergency came. There was an injury. I know when I broke my back many, many years ago, I had family and friends that were very selfless and giving to helping me through that very difficult at the time transition. And my brother went the extra mile, 10 miles, 1,000 miles. He quit his job, he moved in with me, and was just there every single day for many, many months, maybe 6 months after my injury, to make sure that I got to rehab and all the doctor's appointments and things like that, until he felt maybe I was now through this adaptation of going from being an able-bodied person to getting by and getting around in a wheelchair with a spinal cord injury. Okay, so he maybe didn't know that about himself, and I didn't know that he had that in him, at least to that degree, until you're presented with the opportunity that you have to rise to the occasion. Okay, now sometimes we're faced with something and we fold, and it's just not for me, and it's not a good fit. A lot of times, though, we surprise ourselves and others and rise to the occasion. And I can speak for my brother. He seems to have a natural knack for it. I have a propensity towards being a caregiver, I guess, caretaker. And I like sharing. To me, sharing is caring. I care about you. That's why I'm sharing about all this on this podcast. And he just had this extra quality that it's hard to describe, but he got in this caregiver mode, and it was almost like an altered state. And he was on, and I've seen him do that since then with our mother and our father too, as you know, they occasionally have needed elder care as they move on and advance in their years. And he, though, somehow before he faced burnout and complete depletion, he was able to take little breaks and able to keep his energy up, keep his sleep at least somewhat intact, sleep cycle, and didn't get too burned out by it. Now, I've seen other people who have been doing this for a long time, or the degree of care that they are giving to somebody is so intense and so demanding that they don't sleep well, they don't eat well, there's a lot of stress, a lot of emotional kind of absorption. You know, you take in what's around you, you take on some of the emotional troubles that go with whether it's an injury or advancing years or special needs. It can be taxing. It can take a lot out of you to be able to do this. And if you don't refresh, if you don't replenish, then you're trying to feed from an empty bowl, okay? It's so important to fill your bowl up first, or at least replenish it along the way as you're helping others. Because at some point, the person giving the care, and if that's you, you will reach this burnout point to where maybe if you have a lot of insomnia or you just can't sleep because this is so demanding, then mistakes get made because anybody who is suffering from lack of sleep for whatever reason is not functioning 100%. And physically, everything that's going on nutritionally, it can just be overwhelming and too much. But at the same time, I don't know how many of these caregivers are offered help from other people beyond them not taking care of themselves so much. I've seen in kind of anecdotally, but I've also seen it somewhat firsthand where the caregiver actually refuses help, doesn't feel comfortable receiving this help, even if it's just a small portion of the help that they are generously and willingly and seemingly very easily able to give to another, this selfless giving, somehow don't have that acceptance of receiving help. In fact, maybe even a rejection of it, that if you become so identified with this role of being a caregiver, and it's a very good thing, it's a wonderful thing, it's a needed thing, it's amazing what people can do. And it is so important, but the caregiver sometimes, in my experience, has put themselves on the back burner or even not there at all. Like, no, I'm the one that gives care. Why would I receive care? They don't actually say that, but that seems to be what the dynamic is. It's like a one-way street. No, I am the caregiver. It goes from me to you because I'm here to help you. Why would the helper need help? Well, the helper does need help. Okay? The massage therapist probably gets a sore neck from doing all the massaging. Maybe needs a back rub every now and then. Okay? Even the Dalai Lama has a guru that he meditates with. All right? And he's supposed to be, this, high-end spiritual person. He has a guru. He has a spiritual advisor that helps keep him on track. A lot of other professionals, like therapists, psychotherapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, they deal with people's problems all the time. And yes, it's professional and they're getting paid for it, for their time. But it can be a lot to take on. It can be exhausting. And maybe they need somebody to talk to every now and then as well to kind of release all that's been absorbed throughout all these therapy sessions. Okay? So even an expert guitar player sometimes will take lessons. A top-end IndyCar driver during the off-season will see a driving coach because there's always something you can pick up. So no matter how good you are at something and no matter how awesome you are at delivering and providing, you still need to receive. You still need to, A, provide that for yourself or receive it from somebody else. But it gets locked in. And the only other, well, I've seen it in other areas too, but one in particular is with addiction, whether it's alcohol or drug addiction, that it's logical to say, oh yeah, you might want to quit drinking after the DUIs and after the losing your job and embarrassing moments at someone's house because you're wasted, or your health, and the doctor says, look, you got to quit smoking and drinking. This isn't really helping you out. Maybe it's the first arrest. Maybe it's the second arrest. At some point, hopefully sooner than later, the person will finally hit bottom and say, oh my God, okay, enough's enough. I surrender. I'll go into rehab or into 12-step programs or something like that to then get on with their recovery. Okay? But during the addiction phase, they don't think they have a problem. Or why should I go there? Well, I can handle this on my own. Or if somebody tries to intervene through an intervention or advice coming to this person, it's almost taken as an offense. Like, how dare you? What, you're all sitting around here? Would you gang up on me and going to send me off to rehab? Well, and then I'm out of here. I'm going to the bar. It's funny in a way, and it's kind of tragic in another way, but it happens. Okay, we can get so locked into this role that it is so hard to receive help, and it becomes so hard to help yourself. But back to the air mask. Okay, if you are a caregiver and that is something you enjoy, maybe you pride yourself in that, maybe you identify yourself with that, keep in mind, you still have to put your air mask on. Okay? And if you're healthier, if you're stronger, you're better able to continue with this helping. But overly identifying with it and rejecting this help can be a real problem. And, there can be a number of ways of addressing this. One is kind of a mind exercise, and that is, if you identify and enjoy yourself being a caregiver, how would you feel if the person that you're there to take care of doesn't want your help, rejects it, says, no, that's fine, I don't need it? Well, then where are you? All right? Don't you need this other person to receive your help before you can be identified or self-identified as a helper, as a caregiver? All right? If no one's there to take it, you can't really give it. Okay? So in a way, in a very literal way, to be a caregiver, you need a care receiver. Okay? So this thought exercise goes, if it makes you feel so good to be able to help somebody who is receiving your help, why would you deny somebody else that feeling who maybe wants to help you? It's turning the tables, it's flipping it around, and that can be so hard to do. And not even hard, just it's like not even on the radar. It's not even a concept. It's not even something that crosses your mind to try to do or want to do. It's not even there. Okay, so that's how difficult it can be. And hopefully before the caregiver, or you, if that's you, runs into burnout and faces depletion and exhaustion, that you can turn that around a little bit and get in more of a two-way street with this caregiving. Or if there's no one else, and maybe, a lot of times caregivers become caregivers because there's really no one else that's competent or able or willing to do that. I've seen that with sick or elderly parents where, there may be 3 or 4 kids, and, one of them runs the other way, the other one stands around and complains, and another one actually does all the work while everybody else is complaining and doesn't get any of the credit for it, gets criticism, all this stuff, but they do it. But they're the ones that are able to, okay? And they can see that. It's like, oh my God, these guys are total nincompoops. They can't handle this, but I guess I got to do it. And then it becomes a thing, and that becomes what you do. So a lot of times it's necessary, and you might be the only one in your circle that can do this, that is either physically or emotionally capable of providing this care that is so needed. Okay? So in that case, I guess you would have to then, as a caregiver, make sure that you give some for yourself. Okay? Tithe. Maybe 10, 15%, of your caregiving allotment has to come to you. And that can be reshaped in the form like the air mask. And this will do some convincing of yourself, or if you're trying to help a caregiver to receive help or to have them want to take better care of themselves, this air mask is such a great story that can, I think, cut through some of this resistance. That don't you want to be a caretaker? Don't you like giving care? Yes, you do. That's what you're doing. Well, how about being a better caregiver? How about being able to do it longer or do more of it? Or do it in such a way that doesn't leave you so exhausted at the end of the day? Put on your air mask first, okay? Take off of that oxygen before you help this other person. Okay, and that's, again, it's hard to do. You get tunnel vision. You get in this mode of whatever it is. If it's workaholism or, you're the responsible one, you have to be responsible for everybody, and there's no one else that's competent. you can get locked in that, and then you're not responsible for yourself. Okay? So if you want to give, you have to be able and willing to receive, because it's an exchange. It's a two-way street. It's like communication. There's speaking and then there's listening. Okay? It's encoding and it's decoding. And to get this person, this you, if that is you, to do that will take some time, but it takes a softening up. You have to maybe at a time, not in the maelstrom or the chaos of some emergency, or I have to be here, I have to do this, oh, I have to take care of this person. When there is a pause, when there is a rest, say, you know what? I need to take care of myself. Because if you don't, something will happen. Okay, this happens all the time. This is the universe working here. Okay, it's a great quote. Sometimes we have to be rendered even more helpless to receive the help we need. Like the alcoholic or addict has to hit bottom, wherever that is. You know, I know somebody who was a lawyer, is again now, but he lost his family because he was a drunkard. He lost his position at the firm that he helped start. And he lost his license. He got debarred, or disbarred, I think it's called. And that still wasn't enough. Okay, then he lost his home and all his money. And then he's on the street. And then he got arrested. Nope, didn't quite get there. And it was only when his teeth started falling out, living on the street. Finally, he goes, you know what? Maybe I should do something about this. So I can't explain that. That's part of human nature. This is something that we do. We get locked into something, and no matter how sensible or logical it is that we do something better with ourselves and our time and our lives, it takes sometimes hitting this rock bottom. So as a caregiver, and you're just pouring out all this energy and not replenishing, the universe will come up with something. It'll be an injury, it'll be a sickness, it'll be something that will force you into taking a break from your caretaker duties so you can take care of yourself. All right? Try to get to it before that happens. Grab that air mask, put it on yourself. Feed from a full bowl. Okay? Go to the well and fill this great jug up. Lift a little bit of weights, get a little bit stronger, have a little more stamina, eat a little better, sleep a little longer, try to meditate, work on your breath, anything to reduce the stress, enough so that you have this window of respite and restoration so that you can get back in and still do what it is you're so good at. And if that's taking care of another person, there's probably no higher calling. But if you're really going to be a good caretaker, a really good caregiver, give some care to yourself, put on that air mask yourself, and help the other person. And thank you for listening. And we'll see you next time here on Living the Inner Life.